Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this talk, Cannabis and Neuropathy, from Molecular Mechanism to Real Patient Experience. I'm Dr. Miyabi Shields, and I'm joined by Andy Westerkamp, and we're going to give you a really brief overview of the mechanism of how cannabis can work as a medicine for neuropathy, and then some real patient experience and tangible takeaways of how you can use it. So I'm Miyabi. I have my PhD studying the endocannabinoid system in drug discovery, but I'm also a patient. I struggle with chronic pain, GI issues, and mental health, and cannabis helps me to regulate all of those things immensely. So I'm really passionate about empowering other people to seek options that may or may not help them in their healing journeys. So the therapeutic effects of cannabis are from activating the endocannabinoid system. There is a very real mechanism for how this works, similar to other medications that you might have heard of, like either pharmaceutical medications or over-the-counter medications like Advil. Because each and every one of us has an endocannabinoid system in our own bodies right now that is functioning to help your brain activity. It regulates your metabolism and the immune system. So these molecules up here in the top right are endocannabinoids, and every single one of us is creating these right now. These molecules are responsible for taking care of the endocannabinoid system and making sure everything is in balance. The endocannabinoid system really helps your body balance everything out. And the way that cannabis works is by creating molecules that are similar to these that activate the same system. So these are some molecules that are created in the cannabis plant. And if you've heard of THC right here in the middle, or CBD, these are the two most popular. But there are many other cannabinoids and there are many other molecules present in the plant that are also helpful and that can contribute to the effects. I just want to say an aside here, these molecules are some of the safest molecules that have ever been discovered and studied, and that because of that, there's a relatively low risk to trying cannabis as an option for something that may work to help reduce some of your symptoms. So with that being said, I'm going to talk really quickly about neuropathic pain and the causes and how cannabis can help specifically with that. So this is a picture of two neurons talking to one another. And the way that the endocannabinoid system and that cannabis can work to help neuropathic pain is by interrupting these two neurons from talking to one another so that the pain signal doesn't reach your brain and you don't feel that pain. So the reason why neuropathic pain happens or occurs is because this brain cell on the left here is trying to talk to this brain cell on the right. And the way that they talk to one another is by electricity. And they send an electrical signal down right here this way, and it crosses over right here. And if the brains are functioning correctly, the electricity is only crossing over at this spot right here that we call the synapse. But what happens, for example, in HNPP or CMT, there is a disruption in a protein that makes this piece of the brain cell's structure called the myelin sheath. The myelin sheath is responsible for protecting the signal, the electrical signal from one brain cell to the other. And if you think about it, if you were to have either holes or a tear in that protective layering, what you end up happening is this electricity kind of goes elsewhere, and that's what causes the pain. And when you take cannabis products, it activates the endocannabinoid system, which will then reduce this electricity and reduce the amount of neuropathic pain that ends up reaching your brain. Now, that's not the only thing that the endocannabinoid system can do. It's also involved in inflammation, and it can help with sleep and anxiety and GI disorders and a lot of things that are often comorbid or that come hand in hand with other chronic conditions. But in a nutshell, this is how cannabis helps with neuropathy, and we're going to be here for the Q&A afterwards, so I will just continue on. Before I hand it over to Andy, who's going to tell you some more practical applications, I want to focus here just for a second and say that it's not all about THC. THC might be the best known cannabinoid, and now more recently CBD is gaining popularity, but there are plenty of other cannabinoids present, and there are plenty other molecules in the plant, like terpenes, that contribute to the total effect. And basically what this means is that there are plenty of options out there. There are so many different cannabis extracts and so many different ways to use cannabis that there isn't just a one-size-fit-all solution for everyone. And while this might seem overwhelming because it doesn't mean that everyone's getting the same exact thing, it also means that if something doesn't work for you, there's a high likely chance that there's another option out there that might work better or that might work more specifically for what you're looking for. So Andy's going to talk more in detail about this, but quickly, there are benefits to each method, right? Like smoking and inhaling has faster onset, edibles have a longer duration of action, topicals like lotions are a local activity, and suppositories are really fast acting and you don't have to eat them. And I think that basically these options are just ways in which we can manipulate things to change our quality of life. And I think that it's really important to know that they're available and that they're safe to try. And before we leave, I'm going to hand it over to Andy, who is my business partner, a talented cultivator, and also a patient who has HNPP, and he's going to talk about his journey and about how to use cannabis products and different ways that this has helped him.
Awesome. Thank you, Miyabi. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. This is really exciting. My name is Andy Westerkamp. I'm the co-founder of Real Isolates LLC. I have HNPP, and I love to smoke weed. Actually, I love it so much that Miyabi and I started a business to research what's in cannabis smoke. Probably like a lot of you listening, or at least some of you, I know HNPP does, certainly has its differences between CMT. But most of my life I've lived with really strange episodic symptoms, like complete numbness all over my body, unexplained pains, burning sensations, the feelings of bugs crawling all over me, muscle weaknesses, and a number of other really weird symptoms. Doctors really had no idea what was wrong with me when I was a kid, and it actually wasn't until I was 25 that I lost feeling and function in my hands for about 2 months. And all jokes aside, that's a really long time not being able to roll a joint. But whether it be physical or mental relief, cannabis has, really helped me for a long time. And I've been passionate about sharing how it helps me since well before I knew I was dealing with any kind of, genetic or neurological issues. Actually, the funny thing is, prior to knowing I had some sort of genetic neurological issue, I didn't have a real good excuse for smoking weed. I just really enjoyed it, and unbeknownst to me, I was using it medicinally the whole time. And I think that's an important thing to focus on, because there is a stigma. We're trying to break it every day with research and with information. But, remains true that, I felt for a long time like I didn't have a good excuse. But I did enjoy it, and, here we are. But talk about looking on the bright side of a diagnosis. I said, hey, HNPP, all right, now I have a good excuse to be using this medicine that's been helping me the whole time. But in all seriousness, though, when I heard my neurologist tell me that I had an issue of this nature and that it's genetic with no treatment, blah, 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 I did feel a sense of doom and gloom, probably like a lot of you feel when you hear this stuff or when you hear it about a family member. And from one patient to another, I just want to share something that I thought was really valuable for me personally that I did learn from growing my own cannabis, actually. If you're looking at the screen here, cultivating cannabis taught me that I am more than just my genetics. Environment is really, really important. Regardless of what kind of genetics you choose to cultivate or use, the environment plays a huge role in keeping the plants alive and surviving, and better yet, thriving. The quality of life of the plant will decide the quality of the flower, which will be harvested and used as, a therapeutic method for anyone. Manipulating temperature, nutrients, light, air, humidity, soil, you name it. All these things play an integral role in allowing your plants to thrive, just like us. So I noticed a lot of similarities between plants and people, and I thought, hey, just like those plants, for me, right, regardless of my genes and having HNPP, given the right environmental factors, like in my case, like attitude, sleep, diet, exercise, etc., you can thrive and achieve an improved quality of life. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to use cannabis. There are 5 listed here, probably in order of popularity from left to right. Smoking, vaping or inhaling things, edibles, topicals, transdermal, and suppositories. As Miyabi mentioned really quickly, the onset and duration of these different methods does matter when you're choosing what to use. I can give you some personal insight into what I do, but before I do, I feel that I should mention a few things to acknowledge. Cannabis can affect everyone differently, so it's best to ease your way into trying different methods and products, although try not to worry about overdosing yourself. people have tried unsuccessfully for many years to do that, and it hasn't happened. In some cases, cannabis can help you mentally, maybe even more so with your perspective on your situation, even more so than it would physically. It does help relieve many, many symptoms, including but not limited to neuropathy. But it is not a cure, and in fact, we can't even really suggest its medical value as a company that's approaching this industry. It's a tricky line that we have to toe talking about that. But most importantly to this audience, it's not all about getting high or just about THC. Even people with a high tolerance or healthy tolerance to THC, a lot of people just want relief, especially during the daytime hours or at work or with the family, things like that. So it's important to recognize that. You can use it intentionally, not just to get high. Generally speaking, in these 5 subjects here, smoking, it's the most popular method. It will kick in the fastest. So if you're having some acute pain or anxiety, depression symptoms, this might really help quickly to kick in and make you feel a little bit better. It will also not last very long, though. And something to consider here is that smoking strain-specific effects are real. Between the different types of plants that are out there and the different strains you can choose from, there are thousands of different strains at this point. You can feel different effects, mostly from smoking. Vaping is similar onset. It kicks in pretty quickly. It lasts pretty similar amount of time to smoking, maybe about an hour or so. It does require some investment into technology. You need a dryer vaporizer or a dab rig or something like this. The types of products you would choose are also a little more expensive and less available. They're concentrates, extracts, things like that. That's kind of our area of expertise. Edibles are going to last quite a long time, 2 hours plus for some people, but it's important to recognize they could take up to 2 hours to kick in. And when you eat THC or cannabis, it's going to metabolize in your liver into something called 11-hydroxy-THC, which is more psychoactive and potentially could produce some unwanted side effects like paranoia, anxiety, things like that. So be careful to start small and move forward, work into it. Topicals and transdermals are a great option for local relief. If you've got pain in your back or your legs or your feet or your hands, you could rub some topical on there, and it's not going to make you feel high, but it will kick in pretty quickly, and you can notice some relief. So that's a great option. I actually like to mix a lot of these methods together. So maybe smoking to fall asleep, eating an edible to stay asleep, and a topical to help in my case, my back and my lower legs can really hurt a lot. So this has been helpful for me. Suppositories are a funny subject to some people, but they are a very popular category of products. You do not have to eat them, obviously, and they're going to kick in pretty quickly as well. So that's a really great option, especially for people with any kind of GI issues or hemorrhoids or something like that. Now, options, Miyabi mentioned this before. It's something that's really important to us, and one of the reasons why we do our research. In this case, right, when I'm told I have no options by a neurologist, that kind of bummed me out. And I said, I'm going to have an option here. And cannabis is an option, but there are so many options in cannabis. And in the legal regulated market, I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the next decade or so. For us, we researched smoke. We made this new method where we capture selectively from smoke so that people can enjoy the benefits of smoking without having to smoke. So our trademark is "We Smoked It For You," which is, kind of provocative and fun, but it's serious, right? I mentioned before that, it could be hard to roll a joint or pack a bowl or something like this, or even open one of these child-proof packages that you might buy with an edible. I mean, it's serious. Having an option where you don't have to smoke to enjoy the effects of smoking was important to us to investigate. There are millions of people out there, not just people with CMT, HNPP, or any kind of inherited neuropathy, that would potentially benefit from having an option that doesn't have to be smoked and still enjoy that. So something that I can just touch on real quick is the difference between smoking and edibles is essentially absorption and metabolism, how quick it's going to kick in and where it ends up in your body, through your lungs or through your liver. But there's a third, equally or more important factor that we study, and that's that heat from smoking will transform the cannabinoids into a completely different mixture. So when you're smoking, you're actually consuming a completely different product than you would from an edible or a topical or traditional extract. So our method enables processors to create products that would have that profile that you would only get from smoking, but now it can be in an edible form. Please check out our booth, the Real Isolates booth. We would really appreciate you to stop by. We're happy to answer any questions. Our podcast, Smoke and Science, actually, we had a great episode with Allison Moore. Thank you so much, Allison, on pain. Check out our Instagram, Smokenol, LinkedIn, Real Isolates. I actually moderate that page. RealIsolates.com is our website. And yeah, thank you all so much. We're really excited to be here. And any questions, feel free to reach out. We're really excited to share.